The challenge with any game that's in a series is that there's some baggage and there's some work to do. But if you develop your space fairly carefully, you groom it, then you can avoid, I guess, some fundamental missteps that make it very hard and impenetrable for new people to come in. Regardless of positioning and how you might talk about NPR, we've tried to keep Dragon Age something that at the very surface level you can understand, right? Demons bad, blight bad, right? Those are pretty much universals. Humans flawed, mages dangerous, but also powerful. And that we're starting with these first principles, things you can understand, core themes like I said, security versus liberty is the Mage Templar debate. And it's something you can bring home quickly and rapidly apply to our own society and go, okay, cool, I can understand that because it's a human thing. It's a universal story. The things that help us stand apart from well, not the standard, because the nice thing about fantasy is that it's inherently kind of unique, is that we take what I consider to be fairly familiar tropes, like, oh, elves, they have pointy ears. That's pretty much a given. They're recognizably elves. They are not, however, immortal 1,000-year guardians of the forest lands. No, they're stuck in slums, they're in cities, they're in a very different situation, and they're a different analog. We are a game where, in many ways, humanity is the prime motivator of the world. There are not many examples of puppet masters. There aren't gods vying for the real power while using heroes as their thing. It's more of a human and grounded story. And I think that's where in part Game of Thrones also finds its footing. They do so in a context of very low magic, though. So in our case, it is to blend the struggles of, well, we have a world with high magic where there's remnants of very high magic left lying around, but we don't have an active god or any kind of like superpowered being that's struggling to control it. It's a very human story, but a human story with more fantastical elements. And then you mix with that things that help us stand out just by virtue of being purely unique. The Qunari, right? They're not quite religion of the Qun as the invasion force, right? Them as this pressure on the outside, disturbing the status quo, the tension between the mages and Templars, something we keep deliberately gray, because I think it's a very personal choice whether you sacrifice liberty for security, right? That's a pretty fundamental decision. And that's the kind of thing that skirting that line between a real story and grounded characters, but with fantastical elements that are quite obvious, lets us explore a space that isn't always covered. I think probably the thing that makes me most happy about Dragon Age is that we've kept a very strong commitment to the future. We have put in a vast amount of work trying to get our world lined up, building our lore, working with the novels, working with the comics, working with the anime to kind of support the themes that we want to explore in the future. That we have a plan, that we're going to execute on it, and we're going to continue to flesh out this world and make it bigger and bolder, so that as fans engage, as they dig through things we might have hinted at in a previous game, they recognize that the stuff coming up is actually there. That to me it's immensely rewarding as a creative effort. It's exhausting as well. We had to hire a crime reporter specifically just to do the work necessary to chronicle everything that we've developed. But by maintaining it, we make our jobs easier, we make the world more consistent, true, and robust, and we essentially can put our focus onto making fun gameplay, fun scenarios, tough dilemmas, big choices, without having to worry about all the paperwork of making the history still make sense, because we've already put the effort in to do that. My ideal is that it's something that could theoretically go on forever, that the conflicts are eternal. And we're in a pretty good place for that, right? The Darkspawn are always available as villains. We always have human greed and suffering and intolerance as major themes. And those don't get fixed easy. Loose ends are a constant problem, right? I think that any given franchise can support X amount of things that are mysteries to be left unresolved, and that we have I think a responsibility to resolve some of them if we're going to introduce new ones. So I tend to look at it as you have to look at it as an evolving thing. It's like a plant you have to groom, a bonsai tree essentially, where I want to bring a branch over here, but I probably can't have branches to the right as well. And so in that case, we maintain it by going through, kind of at the end of every game, we almost do like a story post-mortem. What did we introduce? What did we not wrap up? What's still dangling out there? And I think right now the franchise is in a place where there's a few too many loose ends, and that we need to resolve more of them. We will be introducing new mysteries. That's the joy of having a world where the narrators, the history, the lore books, they're all fundamentally written from the perspective of someone in the world, specifically so that there are no absolutes. But while we can explore new stuff, I think that we have a resolution to say, well, so what is up with Red Lyrium? And that's the kind of thing that we want to bring to people's understanding, so that they can come along for the ride and enjoy it. So we have some stuff to pay forward, but we wrap up the old stuff as we go. And as long as you're cleaning up after yourself, it works out pretty well.
Would you want to work on Dragon Age for the rest of your life? Does it just keep going on forever?
Well, rest of my life is. I mean, I think there's a distinct pushback to a 90-year-old creative director. That's just waving your cane, getting kids off your virtual lawn, right? Wondering why things aren't like Second Life anymore. So I probably not quite that far out. Here's the thing. It's a organization that really supports the kind of storytelling we do, right? Pushing for dilemma, pushing for tough choices, and that kind of thing. It's got brand new tech. It's very shiny. There's possibilities we've only scratched the surface of. So there's a huge amount of potential. Lots of challenges. Keeps me very engaged, and the team is amazing. So certainly no plans to leave in the near future.